Hello, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. And I'm very excited. I have a new friend with me. And Jaclyn, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
Yeah, my name is Jaclyn Gallo. I'm a life coach, speaker, and author, and my passion is to help people achieve their big, crazy, unrealistic dreams and goals. And I love helping people believe in themselves. I think that's the missing piece for so many people. And it's so beautiful because it's a ripple effect, not only to their lives, but to every person that they interact with. So it's really rewarding.
Wow. Wow. And then, so I guess that believing in themselves is also kind of part of also building their self esteem and letting them, you know, build that and learn that they actually, have it within themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very cool. I know as women, I think sometimes we struggle with that in general. I don't know if every single woman struggles with it, but my girlfriends and I have conversations about that all the time.
I think every human, especially women because of societal messaging since we were little girls, has really influenced us. But I truly think it's something that every human has faced in their life. And if we could change one thing about humans in general, it would be to just give everyone the belief in themselves. I think it would change the entire world.
Mhm, mhm. So you're telling us a little bit about what you do. Go into a little bit more detail on what what's your favorite parts?
Yeah, I love speaking. I love getting in front of an audience and being able to share a message that resonates. And something that I think is really special about it is everyone's coming into an event from a different perspective, a different morning that they lived, a different time in their life. And sometimes it's just the exact message that they need to hear, which is what I think is so powerful about like the entire work of personal development. Sometimes you hear the same messages. You've probably heard someone else say to believe in yourself. I'm not the first person. This isn't the most enlightening thing you've ever heard before. But maybe today was the day that that really resonated with you and that you heard something and puzzle pieces clicked, and before you know it you're going to make a big courageous decision that's going to change the trajectory of your entire life. So I just feel so grateful to be able to bring that message and know that there are people in there who really need to hear it that particular day.
Oh, that's awesome. Very, very cool. And I know you said you like speaking. You're actually a TEDx speaker too.
Yes.
That is so cool. Tell us a little bit about that because that's like just so exciting.
Yeah. So I know we were chatting a little bit before the interview, and I was telling you how I wish that I could go back in time and figure out what it was about my younger self because I started my business when I was 21 from my dorm room in college and figure out what was it about her that had so much courage. And more specifically, I had failed twice. I failed creating a product. I spent $10,000 on inventory that sat in my grandmother's garage for 6 years. And then I raised 20,000 on Kickstarter to fund an app, beta tested it with a few hundred users, and it was crashing. It had bugs, it had so many problems. I had spent all the money I raised, and at this point I'm like, okay, I probably should give up. I've tried now two businesses, they've both failed, yet something in me kept me going in that moment. And so what my TEDx is about is it's about that moment where I was at rock bottom. I felt like a complete failure. I really had no evidence in my life, especially in this specific area of entrepreneurship, that I had anything inside of me that I would be successful, yet I kept going. And so I
Wow.
looked back on what was it about me that is different from other people, because there are so many people who hit a rock bottom moment and they give up on their dreams. They decide that they weren't meant for them. They convince themselves that they'll be happier if they take this other path, but it's actually not true. They're just convincing themselves of that because it's too painful to admit that they just gave up on themselves and their dreams. And I have so much empathy for those people because I was so close to being that person. So what I did was I went back and I read all my old journal entries because I find, and I'm sure you can relate, that it's really difficult to take yourself back with the you are now because
Hmm.
you've evolved so much, you've grown so much. That was 7 years ago. So how am I supposed to take myself back to that place? So I read all my old journal entries and it was difficult because they were very negative, had a lot of pain and just depression, honestly, that I was feeling. But I found something really interesting. I found that despite all of the pain, maybe every paragraph there would be a glimmer of hope. And it would say something like, well, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, and I don't know if it's ever going to work out. But deep down, I know that if I committed to this, I could do it. If I didn't give up, I would be successful. These pieces of self belief. And so I came up with the courage equation, which is courage equals belief greater than fear. So I was filled with fear. And I think there's this messaging, be fearless, and it's well intended, but it isn't realistic. It's not grounded in the reality that we're humans and we will feel fear. But the thing that will help you overcome the fear is having just a little bit more self belief. And I also looked at, where did my self belief come from and different tips to build it. So that's kind of the context of the talk.
Wow, that's so cool.
Thank
Very
you.
good stuff. Yeah, that's great. And I think it is hard. I mean, failure is rough, but as you know, we learn more from our failures than our successes. Think about all the inventors or business people, how many times they failed. Like Milton Hershey failed multiple times before Hershey chocolate.
Yeah.
He just failed and failed and failed. Walt Disney failed at several things. I mean, but you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going, and eventually something works, something clicks. So good for you.
Thank you. It's quite a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. It is a journey, and it always will be a journey. And that's kind of the fun of it too, right? Well, sometimes when you're in it, it's not so much fun
Yeah.
when you're in that painful part. But looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, like you said, it's like how did I do that? And you kind of look back at yourself, the 7 year ago self, and you're a different person because you've grown as a person during that time frame.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think not enough people do that. A lot of people
Hmm.
always feel like I'm not where I want to be, especially, people who are earlier in their career. I hear them say, well, I want to be here and I'm not there yet. But look how far you've already come, and they just miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the further you go, like I'll look back at myself, 20 years ago, and I'm like, wow, I'm not that person anymore. I'm so much more, comfortable with myself and, positive. And, it's just amazing how we just learn and we keep growing. No matter what we're doing, we're growing and learning.
I love that.
Yeah. That's so cool. So do you have any other projects coming up that you're working on? Anything fun?
Yeah, I'm always working on projects.
Yeah, I
I
know,
create a
right?
lot of content, so that's like very time consuming. I have a podcast that airs every week. I have 10 TikToks a day that I share different tips on. And then always working on like online courses and how can I kind of take these bite-sized pieces, even the podcast, it's a bite-sized piece of a concept. How can I turn this into something that will really help people? My goal is to help people change their lives so they don't need to follow me. They don't need to work with me anymore because they actually have implemented these changes. And while growth is forever, and I'm also totally on the train of like, let's continue to grow and evolve and become a better version of ourselves. I do think you can hit a point where you really created a life that you love. And that's my mission, is to help more people get to that place.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What's the name of your podcast?
Spark your light.
Oh, cool. And is it on all the main directories?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then how would if people were listening to this, how would they find out more about you and what you're doing? Where would they go to find
My
information about you?
website, which is jaclyngallo.com.
Awesome. And then you're on TikTok, it sounds like. That's so cool. All
Yeah.
right, that I'm too old for that.
Uh,
I'm not on TikTok. But I know other people listening today are. So good for you. Good for you. Go check it out. So that is really, really cool. All right, so that's cool. So talk about maybe some of the challenges that you have faced as a professional woman.
oh gosh. Well, the number one was my age. We're just going to call it out from the beginning, especially when I was getting started. So, the way that I got into speaking and life coaching after I had my two major failures, I think I was 23, and I decided to go down a personal development binge, basically
Mhm.
for an entire month. All I did all day, because I worked full time for myself from the second I graduated college, I decided I was going to give this my all. I moved in with my parents. I would babysit here and there, do anything I could to pay for gas and the very basic things. And that was it. So all day, every day, I would read books about mindset and becoming a better version of me. And I would listen to podcasts and I would journal. And I thought that I was going to get a job, actually. I really convinced myself that this was just kind of like my time to make peace with my failures and really feel comfortable with myself before I then went for these other external validating factors, because I knew that I wasn't feeling good inside and nothing on the outside would make me feel good on the inside. But of course, once I started consuming all of that content and thinking in new ways, I realized that there was so much more available for me, and there was so much more that I was meant to do. And one of the ways that I realized that was I came across this question in a book. I don't remember what book. I wish I did, because people always ask. But it said, "What is working?" And when you're in a place in your life where you feel like nothing is working, it's really easy to write it off and say, "Oh, nothing," and quickly just ignore the question. But I force myself to really think about it, like, what am I good at? And it's really great career advice for anyone who's at a crossroads. What am I really good at? What's working well for me in my current job, or the current work I do? And what I realized was that when I was building this app, even though the app failed, one thing that I did really well was speak. And I didn't call it speaking, I called it marketing. But I was actually traveling to colleges and I was sharing my story of struggling with an eating disorder in college. And that's why I was building this wellness app, because I wanted to teach women, young women especially, how to have healthy habits in a really holistic way. And I really connected with people just sharing my story, sharing my struggles, sharing my pain. They would follow me on social media, message me about how much it helped them. And months later, I would hear from them. And I thought it was really interesting that my brain had just ignored that whole part of things that were working, because it wrote off, "Oh, this app failed, therefore nothing I did then mattered." And then once I realized it, I thought, I think this is a profession. So I started Googling, how to become a speaker, how to get paid to speak, and taking some online courses and whatever I could to just educate myself. And then when I started to actually pitch myself, it's like there's this 23-year-old who thinks she's going to tell us these life lessons. And that was a really difficult barrier to overcome. But the way I did was I focused on my story and what I knew that I could share that was valuable and what audience it would resonate with. So majority of my speaking when I first started, and even now a good bit of it, is in colleges, because I share to college students how they can get over their fear of failure and put themselves out there and take risks and make uncomfortable decisions, like tell their parents they want to change their major because this is what they really want to pursue in their life, but their parents have told them their entire life that they're going to be X or Y career. And I realize that we all have value, and it's easy to discount ourselves. And I'm sure there are people listening on the other side, because I've had this conversation. Well, I'm too old to be doing X or Y, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. I'm too introverted to be doing X or Y. I'm too extroverted. We can all find things about ourselves that we feel like we're too much of or not enough of. And I've learned to just embrace it, embrace your superpower, and embrace how that makes you unique, and actually use that as a selling point. So that was really big for me, but it took a long time and I was very insecure about it. I would try to hide my age, all kinds of things. And now I'm very open about it and proud of it and really use it in unique ways. So I would say that one was probably the biggest one.
That yeah, I can see that. I remember, coming out of college, you're always trying to, like, you wear the glasses, you do anything that makes you look a little bit more mature. Oh goodness, yeah, but that makes sense. That makes sense, and it is a challenge. You're coming out of college, and you want people to take you seriously, and they're just judging on age or judging on visual. Like you look too young. Like so it is something that you had to overcome, and most kids do have to overcome coming out of college. And they're not kids. I keep saying that, but they're not kids. They're adults.
You feel like a
Oh,
kid still,
yeah,
though.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's because I have two college age young adults, and they're kids in my head because I see them like when they're tiny. So I'm trying to change my own mindset there.
That's fun. Fun transition.
Yeah. And I think I love that you went and still do talk to colleges, because one, I mean, they need that message. They need to hear that story and to hear what you're saying to them. And two, their parents are probably saying the same thing, but it doesn't, we don't know anything, right? So for somebody that's a peer to them, or who has recently gone through it, that message is gonna hit home a lot sturdier, or it's going to hit home closer coming from you than it would from somebody who's been out of college 20 plus years.
Right. And it just took me a long time to actually realize that because of my
Hmm.
own fears. So it's so
Yeah,
interesting to see
yeah,
there's always a different perspective that you can see the same challenge with.
right, right. You just have to embrace it, right? And it
Yeah.
sounds like you have, because you've been amazingly successful with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty cool. Now, you are very young in the sense that you have years ahead of you in your career. So, usually I'll ask somebody about the retirement vision, but I might tweak that question for you and just say, your career vision, because you could have multiple stages of your career. Where do you see yourself going from here?
Yeah, it's definitely very audacious and big and bold. I see myself as someone who can be a voice for really anyone who wants to create a life that they really love and wants to achieve things that maybe feel out of reach for them. And I see my message reaching millions of people. I see myself being able to write books that reach thousands and hundreds of thousands and really just spread my message really far. And I feel like in the digital age we live in, there's so much opportunity for that. And not that it comes without hard work and dedication, but I just feel like the sky's the limit. So why not go for it? And I like to tell myself, I have these really big goals. Let's see how fast I can get there. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
game, a journey. It's like, that's kind of fun to think about that really big goal. How long might it take me to have a million followers
Oh my
listening to these
gosh.
positive messages every day? And so then I just say, okay, and then what action step can I take that will get me closer, and just kind of experimenting. I'm sure that there will be many more unfoldings, but I do have a really clear vision. I think that's important in setting goals to know where you want to go. And for a long time, I didn't have a clear vision. And the reason is because I was afraid to own my big goals. I was afraid to admit them to myself because I felt like they're so unrealistic, which is why I'm so passionate about helping people get past that. Because once I just owned and embraced them, my whole life changed. I started actually spending time on things that were going to get me closer to where I wanted to go, and not just short term focused things that were a distraction or shiny object. So, yeah, they're really big, and I'm sure that there will be twists and turns and new ideas. But I think having a big vision that's clear is really, really helpful for those who maybe have a little bit more time in their career.
Yeah. Yeah, that's spectacular. And I think I remember that you have already written 2 books?
Yeah.
So tell us the titles.
Yeah. So my first book is called The Cuss Method, and it's about my struggle with disordered eating in college and encourages like how to find balance with food and your relationship with food. And the second book is called Stop Getting in Your Own Way. And I wrote it for female entrepreneurs that have an idea and want to bring their business to life, but have so many fears and mindset blocks holding them back. So it's really about like the mindset shifts that I made that helped me actually create a profitable and successful business.
Wow, that's impressive. So impressive. And then so I guess that kind of leads me to one more question, and is like, what is your, or do you have like a, I guess I don't want to say a niche client, but the client, well, like what's a good client? Would, if like people are listening, what type of person would reach out to you and say, hey, it sounds like we would be a good fit to work together.
Yeah, I would say my clients specifically, like who hire me to work one on one, are very ambitious, have very clear goals. I want to achieve this. And they're looking for support to get there. They're looking for
Mhm.
someone who can help them overcome the mindset blocks that inevitably everyone struggles with, the strategic blocks. We talk about, what's the best plan of action and how can you stay committed to it, and balance, and just all the things that come with like being very audacious and having big goals.
Awesome, awesome. So I think our take home message today is, go after your goals, like a
Yeah.
shortened version, right? Go after your goals. Don't
Absolutely.
don't be afraid to go after your goals. I like
Yeah,
it.
and don't be afraid to be disappointed. I think that's why people don't go after their goal. They're afraid because they're like, "Well, I don't wanna go for this because I'm afraid to be disappointed." And the analogy that always comes to mind for me is if you were given a chance, let's say you're a basketball player and you were given a chance to get in the game and they're gonna pass you the ball and it's going to be a shot that either wins or loses the game. Do you want to take the shot? Most people are saying no. I'd rather
Mm,
sit on the bench. And I'm just out here saying, look, I'd rather get in the game and miss the shot every time. If my choices were miss the shot or sit on the bench, I'm missing the shot. I'm going to own it and I'm going to go for it, because eventually you're going to make the shot, right? Enough times you miss the shot, you're going to tweak your shot, you're going to tweak the angle, you're going to learn how to deal with the adrenaline. And you're not going to make every shot, but you're going to make a lot more than you're going to miss if you're actually in the game. And that's the
right.
game I want to play. So yeah, stop being afraid of disappointment. That's the biggest thing.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Great. Well, wow. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me today and just enlightening us all. I love what you're doing. I'm going to start following your podcast because I could definitely put some positive notes in my world too.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me and for taking the time out of your day to speak with me.
Oh, always welcome to do that. And thanks everyone else for joining us. Again, I'm Regina McCann Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management. My website is forgewealth.com, and I am on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and on LinkedIn, Regina McCann Hess. And today's action item is don't be afraid to go after it, and don't be afraid of disappointment.